Welcome to another edition of the Wrestling Roundtable. It's the last roundtable of the year for 2007. I am your host, Eric Santamaria. Joining us on the panel this week, to my right, which would be your left, on the far right, your left, is Brett Simonello. Oh. Excuse me, a fan of 22 years. To his left, which would be, Lawrence Haber, fan of 21 years. And to my left, Rodney LeConte, fan of 19 years. And being that this is the last show of 2007, it's a lot of people are doing their own awards and year in review stuff. There aren't going to be any stupid awards on this show. We're just going to talk about some of the major news stories of the year. What do you say? What were some of the big shows for WWE this year?
Well, the main story of the year is the bastard child.
Hornswaggle?
Hornswaggle! Nothing is more entertaining in 2007 than that little Mick. Nothing.
Okay. I
thought Melina's title run on Raw was more entertaining.
Well, I think obviously the real biggest story of the year is he who we do not speak of, who we've talked about before. But we've talked about his impact on the wrestling industry as a whole. But we didn't talk about his impact on their biggest storyline, McMahon's death. Does anybody actually miss this crap?
No, not at all. It was tasteless and stupid. They were kind of copying The Sopranos a little bit.
Oh, you think?
Because didn't they cut to black after that too?
Yeah.
Didn't they cut to black after that too?
In other words, we gave you the death that The Sopranos didn't give you.
Yeah. Well, what about the effects that he who we do not speak of, offing woman and his kid and whatnot, having on wrestling?
What? Like Jesus.
It was supposed to be eventually Kennedy gets involved.
But because of the steroid light, because of the Benoit thing, they couldn't do that. Because Kennedy, like everything was ruined because Benoit killed him.
Well, at first they were going to bring him back as an accomplice of faking his own death. See, it was me and him and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, my real son.
Then when the murders,
Kennedy went on TV.
This necessitated McMahon coming back and being like, oh, my death was fake.
Which necessitated Kennedy having to go on TV lying, and then he got deported because he got caught with the steroids, which they wouldn't have done.
And we end up with
that policy.
Hornswaggle.
And people actually like this shit.
I enjoy it time to time.
How?
Time to time.
I don't like it only because I know they can't admit that their plans were changed. Like that's why Raw 15 was full of Hornswaggle shit, because they just can't admit that their little plan went wrong. They keep pushing it because they just can't admit that it didn't go the way they wanted to. No, you're gonna like this. It's gonna be funny. See, we're gonna do it every single fucking week until you like it, because we didn't get our way. Wow.
Hornswaggle is the biggest pop of the week.
People react.
Yes.
It's money. No, people react.
Money.
To them, it's money.
How many Hornswaggle shirts you see in the audience?
Not yet.
Has Hornswaggle affected the ratings at all?
It is not a legitimate money drawing thing. It's they don't want to admit that their plans didn't go right. That's why, by the way, the McMahon's starting to act crazy again, because they wanted to do that, but they couldn't because Benoit killed his family.
Well, let's talking about ratings and money. Let's talk about someone who did, for better or worse, like it or not, equal ratings and money. John Cena. How hurt do you think WWF is after him tearing his tit off?
But he never.
I don't think as much, because now they're in a hurry. They brought Jericho back, Michael's back, Triple H is back, Undertaker's back. All their main stars, that they've had for the last few years are back. Wrestling on a full-time schedule, trying to cover up. And that Hornswaggle, they're pushing them, having them in every segment, having Triple H do a stand-up in every segment, just so they could, cover whatever.
I don't think any of those things you mentioned equal one John Cena.
Well, no? Close.
Cena is a huge loss for them.
He's what they finally got something new over, and he's gone.
He was the only legitimate thing they had.
But when a champion gets injured, and he's the main focus of every show for however long it is, when he gets injured, it's like a blessing in disguise, because somebody else has to step up. They don't have a choice.
They never choose the right guy. Cena's gone, so it's another excuse for them to do all the shit that they want to do, that no one wants to see.
Well, you know what? A blessing in disguise analogy works when the thing is...
It's not always, though. It's not consistent,
okay, but
it happens.
If it's a blessing in disguise, it's because what they were doing is old and tired. And I don't think Cena's run was over by a long time.
No way.
No, it didn't even hit its peak.
He still had a reaction out of everybody. Hated him, loved him.
They got the best of both worlds.
Oh yeah, they always have this one angle that they have in their pocket, that if things go really bad, they can hit that magic button and they'll draw a quick rating. So for them, it was no matter what happens, we always know if we keep the title on Cena, our big thing that we can do is have him drop the belt. And that was another thing that they lost, because now that Cena's gone, they can't do that. So they had to do that ridiculous thing at No Mercy with Triple H and Orton, and the belt switches 3 times because we haven't had a title change, so now we're going to do it as many times as we can in one show.
They are never going to learn their lesson with this guy. You know Orton's new wife is pregnant, don't you?
Oh boy, here we
Really?
go.
No, I did not know that.
I hope he does another crippler
And
crossface.
he's the champion. You think they're going to be real happy about their champion getting someone pregnant?
Yeah, but you know, I don't see him being champion longer than WrestleMania.
I know he's not going to be there long, but it's just one fuck up after another with this guy.
What's wrong with getting his wife pregnant?
Yeah, what's wrong with
Because he tried committing suicide a year ago.
If anything, it'll
Yeah.
straighten him.
Allegedly.
If anything,
I would too if I were
have a kid will
him.
make him put his head on straight, stop putting shit in Diva's bags, and
Right, it's a laundry list of fuck
he was a
ups.
kid.
Yeah,
Kennedy, another one.
Well, he's trying to catch up now.
What do you mean he's trying to
Yeah,
catch?
Kennedy's also one of these guys where
I
like
like
they
Kennedy.
really try hard to shove this guy down the throat. They make the rest of the
He's
fans
smoke and
think,
mirrors,
this
too.
guy is the next thing. This
smoke
guy
and mirrors,
is
too.
the next big heel. We're gonna shove him down. And like they try so hard. They put him in with Michaels. They have him in all these angles. He already feuded with Undertaker, Batista last year. Everyone, I guess, but Triple H. And still, I mean, the guy isn't cutting it. He isn't getting good reaction. He hasn't had any really good
That's
matches.
in addition to his public fuck
He
up.
sucks.
Yeah.
He sucks. But it's partly their fault too, because another guy that they don't push the button when it's time to push the button. In hindsight, he actually should have beat Batista for the belt when he fought him at that Rumble.
The Rumble.
Because it was time.
Yeah.
WrestleMania, it's your Money in the Bank. I thought Kennedy was going to win it and cash in later that night and beat the winner of the Michaels
Well, that was
Cena match, which would have been a
victory.
huge,
That would have been
instant
huge.
new star.
We-
But
what
they're
have we-
never willing to break the mold. It goes back to the Raw mentality. They
Well, he
never
tore his
change.
bicep,
Yeah, oh,
took the
like I
briefcase
said,
off him.
in addition to him being a piece of shit,
And they had
There's-
Edge Freedom, which was
they don't do much better themselves, unless it's one of their guys. Orton, Edge, JBL.
I don't know what they see in Orton. I mean, he's tall and has tattoos.
Third generation.
But
He's
third
got
generation,
prison
but
tats
still.
and he's
You know
used
how
up.
long it takes to break them from once they've got their mindset on something. We're gonna do this. Look how long they stayed with Triple H.
Plus, he's associated with Triple H as one of Triple H's babies.
The next big heel is 3 letters. MVP.
Possibly.
MVP.
Yeah,
Well,
I think
The difference between MVP and the guys we've mentioned so far is he's actually good.
Yeah.
He's pretty good, yeah.
He's
yes.
got charisma, he's got talent, he's just getting better and better.
And
each
as
week.
much as I like MVP, it's unfortunate that this is the guy that we're going to look forward to be the. I mean, with all,
he's
all,
not
the,
great.
all the rocks and
He's
angle
still young.
tech.
He's
I
think he's a
think the Bronx and Angles are gone.
That era had the chance to raise the bar so high, and it's set so low now.
Yeah, the era of the
Yeah.
Those
NCAA,
guys didn't
real
have any
legitimate
longevity.
athletes.
They proved that.
It was like 9/11 changing everything. Yeah, for a day.
Well, hopefully we'll have some longevity, and you'll stick with us as we go to our first break. Stay with us. We're going to talk more about the year in review 2007. What a year it was. Welcome back to more Wrestling Roundtable. We're talking about the year in review 2007, and joining us is Martin LeConte, a fan of how many years, Martin?
12 years now.
12 years now. Well, you keep up on a lot of stuff, and we're going to talk more about non-WWF stuff, but before we go, we got a couple more WWF things, like my favorite moment of the year, Triple H tearing his other quad.
Yeah,
How funny
that
was
was a
that?
great match.
How funny was that?
Do you think that really made them lose a lot of money since they were doing so well with the DX reunion
Oh yeah,
thing?
when you saw that pedigree, you knew it was over. You knew.
Well, they had to milk it for the big show because they're guaranteed Michael's
Yeah.
a pop.
Well, Triple H was supposed to fight Cena maybe at that show, but
Something like that,
we'd be
yeah.
remiss if not mentioning WrestleMania 23 because it was the largest attended North American wrestling event ever.
How is
Yeah.
that possible?
Wow.
Somehow.
It's the
Somehow.
name
They just
WrestleMania.
pulled- they
Well,
pulled-
obviously.
The name, same way the Super Bowl always sells. Doesn't
Yeah,
matter which
doesn't
two
matter who
teams,
plays,
it's
right.
still no matter
It's
how much
kind
the
of
show
cool that
sells.
wrestling has something like
Yeah,
that, you know.
it is
that
the
people,
Super Bowl.
But it
Right.
kind
It's
of depresses
bad.
me with these
Yeah.
guys.
Oh, God.
You know, like Cena Michaels does not compare in a dream WrestleMania main event money drawing match to a Hogan anybody.
Oh,
Hogan Andre, Hogan Warrior,
Oh,
even
even
Austin Rock.
To their credit,
Yeah.
Batista Undertaker earlier in the year was actually kind of not a dream match, but it was a match that they hadn't done that had some interest. And again, the match was good only because it didn't suck. That had the potential to be their big main event match, but Cena had become so huge in that year that he had to end the show, and they didn't have anyone to put against him. So it's like default Michaels, who didn't win the Rumble, by the way, and I hate when they do that.
The winner of
the
winner of Royal Rumble
should main event, right?
And they didn't do that mysterious.
Because that makes the Rumble bigger too.
As fun as that last two with Undertaker and Michaels was at the Rumble, it still depressed the hell out of me that these guys
are
the contenders
they go
10
back,
years later.
They go back after Austin Rock era, Brock Angle era, all those eras, even recent eras, era, they're going back to guys from before all of that shit.
Because you know what?
And it's not because they're cool.
Who else do they have?
That's
that much over. It is their fault.
Plenty of people.
They could have made Kennedy that guy, like I said earlier, if they wanted to.
But you know what?
They could have made Umaga that guy.
In the same sense, they could have put someone over in a Royal Rumble the way they put Diesel over in the Rumble, the way they put Baron over in a Rumble.
What if they didn't blow the load on Umaga Cena earlier? Had Umaga win the Rumble dominant, just like Yoko did. Why not have Umaga Cena at WrestleMania? People would actually believe this guy had a chance to end the big Cena title reign. Anybody.
Speaking of Cena, that would bring us to what a lot of people think is this greatest match in Raw history, even match of the year, blah, blah, blah. And that would be when our favorite fuck-up, Randy Orton, trashed a hotel room in Europe, and they had to go to Michaels and Cena, extended to, what, a 50-minute, hour-long match on Raw impromptu. And people are thinking it's this great thing. I don't think it's even the best Cena match or WWF match.
How interesting it is, though, that when they have to go out there without a script, all of a sudden it's entertaining.
Right. It takes someone dying or trashing a hotel room for us to get a straight-up wrestling show anymore.
But then when they have a chance to think, we get Hornswaggle.
But the match I think was really good this year in WWF above all was Cena and Umaga at the Rumble, Last Man Standing.
It's amazing how they take somebody that I hated from the moment they debuted him, Umaga, and they actually did a really good job getting this guy over. And then they ruin him.
He's like beating Michaels, he's beating Triple H.
That's the point of the foreign wrestlers.
Week after week, he's beating all these top guys.
Beat Flair in his first match.
Speaking of
That's when I got Brock over.
Speaking of Samoan wrestlers, that'll bring us to TNA. And they had a pretty decent year. They got their pay-per-views outside of Orlando. They have 2 hours now on Thursday nights, which means twice as much crap. We've talked about TNA before, and since we have, Samoa Joe had his shoot incident on the pay-per-view, which is now being diluted by being turned into an angle. But Loki is now the Raven to Dixie Carter's Eric Bischoff. The first to take that offer to leave, him, Ron Killings, and I believe one other's on the way. Being that Austin Aries quit TNA this year to opt for Ring of Honor, do you see this as the start of a trend? These guys in the mid-card, and there are a lot more who were complaining, who didn't take the opt-out. In fact, Samoa Joe apologized.
Do they want to be in TNA and kind of have the freedom to wrestle, or go in WWE?
They won't even make it on TNA.
They're not gonna, So these guys know they're gonna make more money in the indies working more dates like Aries. He's like, screw this TNA, I don't want to be a pretend star. I either want to be on Raw and be a real star, even as a jobber I'm still a star. People walk up the street, I can sell my merchandise, or it's money. Or I can go to the indies, have freedom to wrestle, people will appreciate me more, and I'll be able to feed my family as a wrestler. That's what it is. So probably, it might start a trend like that.
But some people do it just for the money, just for steady pay.
You can go to Japan if you're in an indie.
Oh, of course. But
Japan commands a lot of money. I mean, they pay a lot of.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Why stay in TNA? For Aries and guys like that, I think it was more financial decision.
Someone who's made a lot of appearances in Japan this year, surprisingly enough, Kurt Angle. And of course, Kurt Angle, he's had like a ridiculous year with TNA. He had that moment where he had every single belt.
And I can't say bad because
I hated it.
Kurt Angle's got to be my favorite wrestler right now. Just because
Kurt Angle still.
Yeah,
I started hating on him in the WWF because I felt that he'd become such a shell of his former self, killing himself, and he just looked like shit with the neck surgeries, and he kept coming back and helping them and bailing them out. He's working less days, he looks happier, he's in better shape, he's not on as much juice. His wife is on TV every week and she's hot.
Yeah,
so you know what, I'm actually kind of cool. I don't mind Kurt Angle being the guy there. I mean, if anybody, it should be him.
Better than Jarrett if it was.
Or Christian.
Better than
Christian.
They're trying to make Christian a face now. But with Angle.
Kurt Angle can't be the only guy.
Sure. In their mind, oh my God, this guy was
Make joke like
Let's put every belt on him. Let's give him every belt.
It's not a real big story because it didn't affect anything, but this year, around that time, is when the NWA finally split ways with TNA, which really is more of a shame than a story, because NWA still has some semblance of a name, some semblance of history.
That's how TNA got started.
And TNA, from the very beginning, really should have been using that a lot more than they have.
They could have
been
WCW again.
Well, NWA split really didn't affect them at all. And that's kind of sad.
Just the title,
By design,
did, because seeing Angle with like a major like NWA title would have been better. You mentioned like Flair's and Dusty Rhodes got that belt, and then you add Kurt Angle to that name. Okay, this guy's gonna be like the big guy.
They should have had Samoa Joe win as soon as they.
You know what was bad about it? And I love Sting, but it forced them to put their belts on all these old WF and WCW guys real quick, just so they could say that the TNA belt was held by Sting, not just the NWA belt.
What do you guys see as your own opinion wrestler of the year? Whose year was it in 2007?
Kevin Nash.
Solid choice, Martin. Very good. You've learned a lot watching the round.
I think it's really a toss-up either way between John Cena and Bryan Danielson.
I would probably say Cena.
Somehow it seems that Cena's gone above his ability, which we know is very limited to be very courteous, and somehow got these matches out of guys who weren't carrying him, like Umaga and Khali, and he's been able to sustain that.
Oh no,
and he hasn't hurt anybody, to which I know of.
What?
Not Khali.
Oh, come on, Martin. That match could have been a fucking disaster.
Yeah.
With a lesser person.
It was Undertaker was a disaster.
If one thing could have been extended this year that I was really enjoying, it would be Vince McMahon as ECW champion.
That was fun.
I know it's like blasphemy for me to say I liked anything he did, but that was so fucking enjoyable.
It was.
Everyone who wanted ECW to come back and loved ECW so much, I hope you love that.
I actually wanted ECW One Night Stand to be in the Manhattan Center and have McMahon as the champion in that arena.
That would have been great. I would have gone to that. I would have gone to that.
Do you imagine the reaction of that crowd?
CM Punk eating a pedigree would be more fun than that, though.
Oh.
Well, hope you're having fun. We're having fun here, so stay tuned for the next 7. We're going to be talking about who deserved a better run with the title. Which title? Find out when we come back.